Hey guys, I decided to share some knowledge. So what we're gonna be doing today is to make a daylight system and play around in its settings. First things first, what are we looking at? This is a crossfire map in case you didn't know, and how to import maps into 3D Studio Max. You can find out on our YouTube channel in a part 5 out of 7 in animating a Call of Duty 4 character tutorial series, so I will not be repeating myself for that matter. Okay, before we begin, go to render setup. Common is selected, go down to assign render, and you should see mental ray render here. If it's a default scanline render, which is actually a default render, then click here, select mental ray, and hit OK. Now, let's render this image here. Note that viewport shows one thing and the render shows the real thing, the thing that is shown after we render a video or an image. Okay, it's going pretty slow. I will be speeding the video up in the next renderings, but let's just wait this one down. Anyway, as you can already see, we have a map. There are no shadows, no lights, no nothing. It looks pretty lame, colorless, and I don't know, I can't think of it. Just doesn't look good. Well, that's where we start playing around. I'm going to cancel this render. Okay, I'm going to click I'm going to hit Control C on my keyboard to create a camera here, so I can easily get back to this viewport that suits this purpose of the tutorial. So I'm going to get back to my perspective viewport. I'm going to zoom back. As you can see, it's not an entire map. You cannot import entire maps. Actually, you can, but it's a complicated procedure. Anyway, let's go to Create Panel, Systems, Daylight System. Okay, a window pops up. It tells you that you should set exposure value to 15 as a default. I will explain you in a moment what exposure value is. Hit yes. Okay, set a gizmo. I don't know if you can see that. It doesn't matter how big it is, and it doesn't matter where it is. You just gotta set it up. After you set it up and after you release your left mouse button, you have to create a mental ray sky environment map. Hit yes. Now you get a sun. This is a sun, and you just have to place its height. Okay, I'm going to place it there. There it is. This is our sun, the source of light. But we're far from done. I'm going to tap C on my keyboard to get back to my camera viewport, and I'm going to render it now. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We got shadows. We got a bit saturated image of our map. And notice that shadows are pointing that direction, as you can see on the satellite dish. So obviously a sun is radiating from somewhere there. Okay, you pretty much get the idea. Now this is where the fun starts. I'm just going to wait until it renders out completely. Also, you can see shadows in there. Pretty good stuff. But it still looks colorless. No colors are shooting out. Okay, I'm going to clone this frame window for comparison purposes. Now I'm going to enter exposure controls. This is where the fun starts. I'm going to render the preview again. Now this little window will render the same thing as in here behind, but the difference is that every time I make a new setting, it will automatically refresh, which is a very time-saving thing. So this is the exposure value. The higher it is, the more darker your image is. The lower it is, the more brighter it is. Highlights burn. Actually, the higher it is, the more colors, the more these colors are shooting out. They're more illuminated. Midtones, Whoa, this is a more something like hue and saturation thing. As you can see, low midtones are kind of good. High midtones are very brightening up the image, and shadows are actually the depth of shadows, just like you might have guessed already. Anyway, my favorite setting is 12.5 exposure value, 0.2 highlights burn value, 0.72 midtones, and 0.32 shadows. So yeah, I was playing around with all this, and this gave me the best result possible. Also, you have the color saturation and white point settings and vignetting, but you know, I've been playing around with that as well. I strongly suggest these four settings here: exposure, highlights, midtones, and shadows. Anyway, you have more settings in there. I'm going to close this window and I'm going to render this again. Okay, it looks better. By the way, these two squares represent how many cores I have in my processor. Obviously a dual core, so if you have a quad core, it will render twice as faster than my case, approximately. Anyway, as you can see, it looks way better. The colors are more bright. You can clearly see shadows are looking better. And yeah, this looks very good. I'm just going to wait until it renders out completely. It takes a bit long. Alright. So for comparison purposes, I'm going to bring up the new render and the old render that didn't have any exposure value settings set in there. You can clearly see the difference between the left one, the old one, and the right one, the new one. So if you play around in the exposure value after you set up the daylight system, you can pretty much get lots of results you want to see. Well, we're not done yet. One more thing I wanted to show you. The this daylight system, go to motion tab. You can see hours, minutes, and seconds in here, months, days, and year. So what is this all about? Well, if you take New York and if you take Sydney, New York during November at 8 p.m. it's dark in there, but Sydney during November at 8 p.m. it's daylight, it's daytime. And as for selecting wherever your location want to be, just click on the get location. You'll get the world map. You can set a continent in here, you can set a city in here. Pretty good. Yeah, you get the idea, but just leave it as it is. One thing you gotta bear in mind, actually two things. First is that the sun shouldn't be behind one large obstacle, and the second is that the sun shouldn't be under the map. These stuff can happen, but in case it happens, you can pretty much use the orbital scale, you know, like this, pretty much change the hours. As you can see, the sun goes around. Why is this very important? Well, I've just rendered out my last rendering at noon. Let's see how things look like in 8 a.m. So I'm going to tap C to get back to my camera, and let's render it out. Well, as you can see, it pretty much looks like it's morning. The sun isn't very bright. There are lots of shadows, and they are pointing to the direction to the left because the source of the sun is to the right. So not only that, you can also animate the hour time. So if you start your animation at 8 a.m. and you've ended up after 10 seconds at 8 p.m., you can pretty much see that these shadows will move and the illumination of all the objects will change. So it will be they will be most illuminated at like 2 or 3 p.m. So that pretty much gives you an idea what about what daylight system really is and how can you play around with it to get lots of good results. And just for you, I made an animation that lasts 10 seconds from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. just to give you an idea on how awesome this system is. And the way I did it looked like this. I extended my animation to 300 frames. I selected my daylight system, and from the motion tab I set it to 8 a.m. Make sure you're at the beginning of the animation, set auto key, and go to the end of the animation and set to 8 p.m. Anyway, you'll check on the render how does this look like, but if you play the animation here you will not see anything happening in here, but you'll clearly see that time indeed is going forward. This was the tutorial about importing a daylight system and playing around in its settings to get the best possible look on your map. And this is pretty much it. Lots more tutorials are coming. Hope you find this useful and subscribe to our channel. This was Maguza, and see you next time. Bye bye.